Caitlin Clark got a little get back at Kelsey Plum.
She was taking a shot, could not help but to drag Caitlin Clark through the glass as she did it.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
The WNBA is on a hot streak. They're finally...
What just happened a few moments ago sent shockwaves across the entire WNBA, and it honestly left a lot of people stunned. Somewhere right now, Kelsey Plum is probably feeling absolutely sick because Caitlin Clark completely outplayed her in one of the most calm, calculated, and ruthless ways we've ever seen in women's basketball. This wasn't loud or emotional. It was smart, intentional, and deeply personal. I'm still trying to fully process it, because this moment was about much more than simple revenge. This was a clear plan, a strategy designed not just to win, but to expose someone who tried to damage another player's reputation. Caitlin didn't rush, didn't panic, and didn't need to say much. She let her game do all the talking, and the message was crystal clear. And let's be honest here, Plum didn't just lose this matchup. This wasn't a bad night or an off game. She was completely outmatched and shut down. From start to finish, Caitlin controlled the situation and removed any doubt about who had the upper hand. This was the kind of performance that changes how players are viewed going forward. Before we even break down this total collapse step by step, make sure you hit that like button if you're standing with Caitlin all the way. Because once you really understand what went down and how intentional this performance was, there's almost no way you'll still be defending Plum after this.
Losers, and you have sore winner, and Kelsey Plum is both.
We want to blow them out. We're a lot better than...
Watching for the league, we're really watching for Caitlin Clark. Everyone's going to be making more because of Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark is the one bringing in the numbers.
Let's rewind for a moment and go back to where this whole situation really began. Because this was never just a small disagreement or a random clash between two players. What happened was rooted in jealousy, quiet resentment, and one player's attempt to take shine away from the biggest star the WNBA has ever seen. It all started during the WNBA All-Star Game, an event that should be about unity, respect, and celebrating women's basketball at the highest level. It's supposed to be a positive moment where players support each other and the league as a whole. But instead of that, the situation took a sharp turn and became one of the most uncomfortable, jealousy-driven moments the sport has witnessed in recent memory. At the time, many players were publicly supporting the "Pay Us What You Owe Us" movement, pushing the league to provide fairer pay and better treatment. And to be clear, that cause is absolutely justified. These athletes work incredibly hard and deserve proper compensation for what they bring to the game. No argument there. But this is where Kelsey Plum showed her true intentions. In the middle of a serious conversation about pay and respect, she made a move that felt calculated and unnecessary. During a press conference, with cameras rolling and the entire basketball world watching closely, she took what appeared to be a thinly veiled shot at Caitlin Clark without ever having the courage to say her name directly. That moment changed everything. What should have been a united front turned into a personal jab, and many people immediately saw it for what it was. Instead of lifting the league up, Plum shifted attention toward herself and her frustrations. Looking back now, that decision may end up being remembered as one of the most poorly planned and damaging moves of her career. And from that point on, the tension was set. What followed later wasn't accidental. It was the result of choices made right there in front of the cameras.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
Or her actually making comments about Caitlin Clark's team not being at this meeting.
She then made a very carefully worded comment, suggesting that none of the players on Team Clark were truly involved or committed. It was an obvious jab aimed at the league's ongoing salary negotiations and player activism. And honestly, the nerve of it was shocking. The comment wasn't accidental. It was targeted, calculated, and meant to send a message. What made it worse was who she chose to focus on. Kelsey Plum singled out the one player who has brought more attention, money, and visibility to the WNBA than anyone else in the league's 28-year history, Caitlin Clark. Instead of acknowledging that impact, Plum tried to paint her as selfish, detached, and out of touch with her teammates. It was an attempt to rewrite the narrative and turn public opinion against the league's biggest draw. The move was so obvious, so intentional, and honestly so poorly thought out that even people who don't regularly watch basketball could see exactly what was happening. This wasn't subtle. was a transparent effort to undermine Clark's reputation under the cover of activism. And it didn't land the way Plum likely expected it to. What makes the situation even more frustrating is the reality of the circumstances. Clark wasn't even at the All-Star game. She was at home, recovering and dealing with her own situation. She had no obligation to show up for symbolic gestures or put on a performative display just to satisfy critics or quiet fans reacting to her dominance. Supporting player activism doesn't require theatrics. And it certainly doesn't mean one player should be singled out to carry the burden for everyone else. In the end, the facts didn't match the accusation, and that disconnect is what made the comment backfire so badly.
Caitlin Clark, during that whole thing about Team Clark wasn't very present.
Me, I thought that was a little dig at Caitlin. A lot of people definitely thought so.
Plum, she was taking a shot at Caitlin Clark's situation.
She's genuinely changed the whole women's basketball world, bringing in millions of fresh fans, boosting the sport's visibility, and helping turn the WNBA into something financially stable in a way we have never seen before. And still, Plum somehow questioned her commitment. The disrespect was unreal, but what came next was even better to watch. The response was fast and brutal. Just watch Sabrina Ionescu's face during that press conference. The unease was written all over her expression as reality sank in about what Plum had just triggered. Even analyst Stacey King spoke plainly, pointing out how dangerous it is to attack the league's top draw. And he was right. The numbers say everything. Since Caitlin Clark arrived, TV ratings jump, merchandise keeps selling out, ticket prices are rising quickly, and expansion costs exploded from $50 million to $250 million almost overnight. She is the league's strongest leverage in pay negotiations. Still, Plum chose to publicly challenge the WNBA's most important asset. But this moment showed Caitlin Clark is more than just a star running plays on the floor. It proved her impact stretches far beyond scoring. Headlines, highlights, records, numbers, charts, debates, moments alone.
That Caitlin Clark didn't join in on the T-shirt discussion.
This week they wore T-shirts saying, making a statement, you better pay us. But instead of just leaving it at that, Kelsey Plum for LA had to take a dig at Caitlin Clark. Here she is.
The T-shirt, just United Front was determined this morning that we had a meeting for, and not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very.
She's a smart strategist working on a level most people can't even notice, playing chess while everyone else is stuck playing checkers. Instead of firing back with a sloppy press comment or jumping into a social media fight, Clark made the ultimate power move. She stayed quiet. She let silence do the work for her. She kept winning headlines without even stepping onto the court and waited patiently for the exact right moment to respond. And when that moment came, it landed like a wrecking ball. Not long after the controversy, Clark revealed a massive global deal with Nike, once again showing that major corporations are lining up and competing just to be connected to her name. While Plum was focused on tearing her down, Clark was busy building her empire. But the final blow came when Clark noticed Plum posting photos from a Nike event, even though Plum is signed with Under Armour, Nike's direct competitor. That's when Clark dropped the perfectly timed, razor-sharp comment that sent the internet into chaos. Thanks for the Nike ad. Brands are lining up with open checkbooks, and she's pulling in well over 7 figures from endorsements alone. While some longtime players are still struggling to get noticed, the corporate world understands what many critics refuse to admit. Clark isn't just the future, she's the present, and she's the main reason this sport is now getting the recognition and financial support it has long deserved. Since that Instagram comment, Kelsey Plum has gone completely silent, likely realizing she challenged someone operating on a totally different level. The same player who tried to paint Clark as selfish and disengaged ended up being outplayed by someone who knows real influence doesn't need noise. It simply exists and lets results speak. Clark's reach is so massive that even a subtle social media comment becomes headline news, while Plum's attempts to stay relevant barely register. But this story is bigger than a personal clash between two players. What we're seeing is a larger attempt by certain WNBA veterans to limit and control Caitlin Clark's rapid rise, and it's failing in dramatic fashion. Before Clark arrived, the league was dealing with low viewership, limited media coverage, and expansion costs that looked tiny by comparison. Social media barely reacted to box scores back then. Games were often played in half-empty arenas with very little national attention to mention. Before Clark arrived, the WNBA struggled with weak sales, empty venues, and zero profitability. Then everything changed. Ratings climbed, jerseys sold out, ticket prices jumped, media deals grew, and expansion fees exploded. Nearly every positive shift in the league connects directly to her impact. Yet, instead of embracing that growth, some veterans respond with thinly hidden jealousy and resistance. What they fail to understand is simple. Clark's success raises everyone. Larger viewership means higher salaries, better resources, and real influence for the league. She's the catalyst they've been pushing against. And through it all, Clark has proven she's more than a great player. She's a leader who understands power, timing, and the long game. She doesn't chase drama. She turns criticism into momentum. Fans recognize it. The numbers confirm it. And history is unfolding right now.